Americans have always been big dreamers. For some, the American dream means having a house, 2 kids, and a dog. For others, the American dream means going to college and becoming successful. But what does the American dream mean for millennials? Find out next on this episode of The Current.
Millennials now make up the largest percentage of the United States population. Welcome to The Current. I'm Helen Flourish.
And I'm Aaron Hendel. Millennials are those of us born between 1982 and the early 2000s. This week, we take a look at Millennials' perspective on the American dream.
I'm Cindy Robinson. A recent study found more than half of millennials are living paycheck to paycheck, and more than 40% of recent college grads are stuck in jobs for which they're underpaid and overeducated. But many millennials still say they're optimistic about the future. We talked to USC students about their hopes and what the American dream means to them.
For me, I think it means just working really hard in school and achieving my goals, and then getting a good job in the end.
Whether it's going to college, finding a certain job, anything, just really taking the opportunities that America offers, and there are plenty.
To me personally, the American dream is a myth. I don't personally believe in it.
To me, the American dream means possibility, being able to have the opportunity to live the life that you want to live, of freedom and choice.
American dream, being a millionaire. Right? That's not good enough?
Just simple as that?
Yeah, just make money. That's success to me.
That's how some USC students feel about the American dream. But what about those who are already out in the real world? Pew Research says millennials are now the largest generation in the workforce, but they differ from their older colleagues in how they define success.
Annenberg reporter Helen Zhao spoke with millennials here in LA to learn what factors are the most important when it comes to job satisfaction.
What are you looking for in a job? Is it free beers, snacks, and yoga? These are great perks, but if you're a millennial, you might want a little something more. Today's employees are looking for things like purpose, flexibility, and constant learning.
I think for my parents' generation, stability was the dream. And for us, I think more satisfaction and fulfillment is the dream.
For millennials, there's no longer such a clear divide between who you are at work and who you are when off the clock. It's not enough to just have a job. We want to love it.
The workforce that used to be based on machines is now based on human minds, human creativity, human capability. So as a result, companies have to start treating their people with more tenderness, with more care, with more attention.
18 to 34-year-olds make up over a third of the U.S. workforce.
Our firm is 80% millennial. Our average age, with 200,000 people around the world, our average age is 29.
At PricewaterhouseCoopers, it costs a minimum of $100,000 to replace a worker who leaves. Like many companies, PwC is adapting to the needs of millennials to keep them on the job.
When our people become senior associates, 25-year-olds, we ship them to a training course called Discover, and we spend a week with them, really letting them explore what they want to do with their lives. Wow, I'm working really hard. What do I want to do? Do I want to get married? Do I want to have kids? Do I want to work here forever?
In today's rapidly changing world, experts say millennials are looking for opportunities to invest in themselves. Because a job may not always be around, but you will.
That was Helen Zhao reporting on millennials and their goals for the future, and now she's here to give us more details. Thanks for being with us today, Helen.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the angle that you initially wanted to take when you started this project.
Well, I'd read a report from one firm that was making recommendations to other companies for how they can foster better millennial retention. And it had many, recommendations as well as qualities that we value. So it said things like, passion, purpose, transparency, flexibility, an entrepreneurial spirit, things like that. So, I kind of had already sort of an impression. And so I wanted to know, what are some companies doing to foster better millennial retention, going out there and actually talking to companies about their strategy.
And just because this episode is about the American dream, what is your idea of the American dream as a millennial?
Well, I guess my dream is in alignment with a lot of millennials that I've talked to. And I did like a little poll on this one app called SpeakBeat. What is the top quality you're looking for in a job? passion and purpose was overwhelmingly the biggest response. And I would agree with that. That's why I want to be a journalist. There are a lot of other better paying jobs out there, but I realized that this is me, and life isn't really worth living unless you follow your dreams.
So thank you so much, Helen. Your piece was awesome, and we really appreciate you coming on the show to talk with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Millennials aren't the only ones talking about the American dream. Presidential candidates on both sides of the aisle agree on one thing: the American dream is under threat. Annenberg Media political reporter Max Schwartz joins us to analyze some campaign ads for the 2016 election.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
Thank you for joining me. First, let's take a look at this ad for Donald Trump.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
Jess Shaw was a 17-year-old football star who was gunned down just outside his home. His killer, an illegal immigrant gang member who just got out of prison. Jess's dad, Jamil, is supporting Donald Trump for president because he knows he will end illegal immigration.
Trump is the only one saying, you're going to be dealt with. We're going to enforce that. We're going to enforce that. That's a beautiful thing. I believe Donald Trump wants to make us great again, and he loves America.
Max, why do you think Trump is using this language to appeal to voters?
Well, he has to use the immigration motif because that's what he announced during his campaign kickoff when he said Mexicans were rapists and drug addicts and that Mexico is sending their criminals here. So he has to continue along this because that's how he got a big base of supporters. He's also tapped into a large amount of anger with the electorate that's sick of everything from the establishment to immigration and everything in between. So he's using this to invigorate them because it's an issue that they care about. They feel like they're talking directly to him, or he's talking directly to them. So it all ties into that base of support, which is the angry electorate across all demos.
Now let's see what Bernie Sanders has to say about the American dream.
People are sick and tired of establishment politics, and they want real change.
Bernie Sanders, husband, father, grandfather. He's taking on Wall Street and a corrupt political system that keeps in place a rigged economy. Bernie's campaign is funded by over 1 million contributions. People like you who see the middle class disappearing and want a future to believe in.
I'm Bernie Sanders, and I approve this message.
So Max, clearly Bernie Sanders, while it's a similar theme to Trump's ad, has a very different approach and a very different goal. What is Bernie Sanders trying to do with this commercial?
Well, absolutely. Just as Trump was trying to say that immigrants and people who are here illegally are obstructing the American dream for Americans, Bernie Sanders is trying to say, in keeping with his motif, which is Wall Street reform and campaign finance reform, that Wall Street is inhibiting the American dream for the average American. And so you see here that he's continuing that and basically saying how bad Wall Street is and that he's continuing his theme from his kickoff. And both of these campaigns are some of the two most on message I think we've seen in a really long time.
Well, Max, thanks so much for checking in, and let's hear back from you after Super Tuesday.
My pleasure. Sounds good.
Access to college has also been an important topic in the presidential race. You might remember that when you were applying to schools, there was a little box you could check off if you were the first in your family to go to college. But how are first-generation students treated once they arrive on campus? I talked to some first-gen students to find out what the label means to them.
Being first-generation means I'm the pioneer of higher education for my family. We have to fight really, really hard to be just equal to everyone else.
People assume that just because you are white or a male or blonde or whatever, you aren't a first-generation college student, because I think there's just a really nasty stigma that goes about what that means.
Going through the whole school system from the very beginning was hard because you never had help with your homework. I didn't understand my homework. My mom knew less than I did because she didn't even speak the language.
They didn't go to college, but that doesn't mean that they're not hard workers. I see them work really hard every day.
I know some people say being a first gen makes it easier to get into college. Other people had other resources their whole life that I didn't have.
I still had to work probably a lot harder in the 18 years leading up to that moment that I got to check one box, just because I didn't have necessarily the same financial support.
Yeah, it can be a struggle, but definitely it's worth it. I'm proud of where I am now to be at this prestigious school.
The fact that I was raised the way I was in the situation that I was with my family has given me a more positive outlook and a more appreciative outlook on the opportunities that are available to me.
Now we have some first-generation students here in the studio to tell us about their college experiences at USC. Before we get started with our discussion, why don't you all introduce yourselves?
I'm Javen.
Hi, I'm MJ.
Hi, I'm Dongpin.
So starting with you, Javen, why was college so important for you?
For me, you know, I saw around me a lot of lifestyles I didn't want to partake in, so I knew that the only way I was going to be able to get out of that and kind of break, you know, this cycle was to get my education.
Personally, I come from a single mother household where my mom only completed some middle school and she immigrated from Mexico to the United States so I could come to school here. So even as a young 8-year-old, I never thought about college as an option. It was, I had to do it, and not just for survival, but also to be able to give back to my community.
For me, I think knowledge is the reason that drives me to go to the college. Because I saw that my parents, they didn't go to college, so they cannot give me enough knowledge to know about the world, and I would like to explore more, so that's the reason I go to the college and continue to go to graduate school here.
Now, as first-generation college students, what issues have you all dealt with that maybe other students don't necessarily understand or don't have to deal with?
You know, I think that the most difficult thing that I've had to deal with is just that where I come from, not many people go to college, and so there's not really a great understanding of what going to college means and the kind of sacrifices you make to do that. And even more so is that people can't conceptualize that, you know, you put in this time and work now so that you can have the payoff later. So for me, the hardest thing really is just breaking out of the mindset of, you know, wanting to achieve greater than what you're being presented. You know, as a foster care student, a lot of times, you know, you're not really told that you can be a doctor or a lawyer or go into a profession. It's kind of assumed that you're just going to go into, you know, low-skilled jobs. So for me, that's been the hardest thing, is to pursue that and break out of that mentality.
I think for me, it took me a while to get over the feeling that I didn't belong here. It was really intimidating to walk into a classroom knowing that most of the kids in there had parents that not only went to college but probably came to USC, or at least siblings, older siblings that came here. And it always felt like people knew everything that they had to know already. It always felt like they had already read the books, they had already, I don't know, applied for everything that they wanted to. I didn't even know like how to, I don't know, meet with an advisor or how to look for study abroad programs. And so it was just kind of starting from scratch. And even though, you know, my high school would talk about college, they never actually told us what that meant and what it would actually take to be here and stay here.
I think the most difficult thing for me, because I'm from the first generation family, so I do not have a very clear direction in my career path, because my parents know nothing about college and the things will happen beyond that. So I have to figure out everything by myself, to learn every stuff I can learn, to grab every new skills I can learn, to be able to find out more about what we are going on afterwards. I think that's the most difficult part.
And do you think USC has done enough to help you as well as other first-generation students, or what else should they be doing?
No, I feel like that's a tough question. There's so few of us. There are a few organizations on campus, like as far as TGS, First Generation Scholarship, Mentorship Program. And while those are really helpful, you know, they're very small and they don't have much as far as resources to help as much as they should. And sometimes I think some students fall through the cracks, you know, of not whether it means not hearing about the programs or them not being able to be helped in that way. As MJ's saying, it's very hard, when you don't have that knowledge that, the parents to kind of fall back and be, how do I do this? It's all up to you, or whatever resources you have at this school. And while there are some in place, I think there should be a lot more.
I think I've been very lucky in that I found great mentors very early in my time here at USC. So one of them being Dr. George Sanchez, who's the Vice Dean for Diversity and Strategic Initiatives in Dorrance Life. So he heads a lot of the programs that target first-gen students, TGS, and students of color and things like that. So I've been very, very lucky, but I do see a lot of students not knowing that these are available or how to tap into them. But most importantly, building community across like Annenberg, Dorrance Live, Marshall, because it's scary, right? And so I think that USC just needs to be more transparent with what is available. But I also think that it's about educating other students and like letting them know the experiences that we've been through. So things like this are very important. And I think it's changing the culture around what being first gen means. Some people don't even know what that means. And so when you're in a classroom and no one really understands your background, but they expect you to understand their background, I think that's where the problems start.
Yeah, well, I think USC has been improving in this aspect of providing more and more like networking chances or like workshop opportunity events for the first generation. And it's my 5th year here, and it's still like sometime around last month when I've been took part in this networking event that I first know, well, we have a community here that I can find help and connect with people. Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing your experiences with us here today. If you would like to share your story, you can reach us on social media using the hashtag #TheCurrentSC.
We've met several people who are working hard to make their personal dreams a reality. But for USC diving coach Hong Ping Lee, success is a team effort. Annenberg reporter Stephanie Wu has more.
Go out and have fun. Support each other. All right.
SC! Hong Ping Lee has been the head diving coach at USC since 1999. Some of the best divers in the country come to USC to learn from this legendary coach. Colin Pollard is a 9-time conference finalist, looking to qualify for his 2nd consecutive NCAA championship. Pollard transferred to USC from UC Berkeley because of Coach Lee.
So it's been a really special bond between us because it takes a lot of trust, and I know that he believes in me, and I trust him to help me reach my goals. He doesn't let us get away with anything, which I think is like my favorite part about him, is he holds us to a strict standard, and he makes sure that we stick to our standard and not compare ourselves to other people.
Before his coaching career in America, he was one of the world's most famous diving champions from China. He started as a gymnast.
I never seen diving in my life before. From the city that I came from, there's no swimming pool that we can swim from. The only time that we can swim is during summertime. And it is a pond that you can kind of learn how to swim, not get drunk.
The gymnast was also not very fond of heights.
When I coach the athletes, anything that from 10-meter platform, I just tell them, I share with them and say, if you don't feel afraid, you're abnormal. So it's very, very common you're afraid because the height, everyone up about 33 feet above the ground, you're looking down. The pool is so small, and then you have to go to do all those kind of somersault and twisting in the air before you into the water. That is definitely a scary thing to do.
When China's national team talent scouts went to Lee's school to recruit divers, they were impressed with his flexibility and strength. But before becoming a government-funded athlete, young divers go through a vigorous selection process during training camp.
Some kids can get past that within 3 or 6 months. It took me over a year. They still not met me.
In fact, Lee failed the training camp twice, but the 3rd time was the charm. Lee finally convinced not only his coaches, but most importantly, himself, that he is talented. At the age of 14, Lee won his first medal in the 1977 Bangkok Asian Games. Lee also represented China in the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics.
To us, it was both exciting, and nervous, and in a way of undergoing a lot of pressure because we know what kind of expectation out there.
He came in fourth, almost fulfilling his dream of winning the Olympic medal for China. And it was there during the 1984 Games in LA that Hongping Li started California Dreaming. They reached out to Dr. Sammy Lee, the first Asian American to win an Olympic gold medal for the U.S. Dr. Lee helped him get a full scholarship to study at USC. In the 80s, it was almost unheard of in China. In his freshman year, Lee won an NCAA title in the 3-meter springboard and earned All-American honors in the 1-meter springboard. He started coaching when he was still a student.
I always have a dream to representing USA, be a coach, but not being an athlete.
They reached his American dream in the 2004 Athens Olympics. He was named an assistant coach of the U.S. diving team. 2 of his USC students competed in those games, Rachel Kunkel for the U.S. and Blythe Hartley for Canada. She won a bronze medal. Lee's coaching technique is a perfect 10.
It's been an amazing experience. He's a phenomenal coach, definitely one of the best in the nation, probably in the world. He does this thing at meets called poker face, so his face will be even no matter how good or how bad the dive is. And there was one meet though where I did a really good dive and he managed to smile. And that's how I knew it was really good, because usually no matter how good or bad, it's the same face.
So Hongping has this thing where like you do a good dive, you come to him, you fist bump, or just like after every dive, it's kind of like this thing where like you're there with him, like, okay, go ahead, you go do it. So I guess it's just like an individual thing that he likes to do with us, and I don't know, I like it.
Why fist bump? Lee said, it gives athletes a little bit of toughness. It's his way of encouraging them to go after the goals. For Annenberg Media, I'm Stephanie Wu.
You can also follow the team on uscannenbergmedia.com as they make a splash at the Pac-12 Championships in Washington this week.
Millennials are often defined as the adventurous and passionate generation. Reporter Madeline White shows us how one fashionista is managing to turn her passion for recycled vintage into a thriving business.
Madeline Pendleton started her own online sustainable fashion brand called Tunnel Vision.
To me, it's just never really made sense to go and get new things when there are so many things in the world already. We go out and source all of our own items, and then we bring them together on photo shoot days. We shoot twice a month, and we photograph it all at once, and then we take our pieces home, we put them on the website ourselves.
With the exception of one local seamstress, Madeline and her friend Isabel Hendricks run the entire company out of their house in Eagle Rock.
There's definitely a story attached to every single piece, and we have done an interesting thing where we've cultivated a customer who values that story. We'll find things that maybe just need a few holes sewn up and then they're good as new, or maybe it just needs to be hemmed into a shorter style to have a more modern feel. And a lot of times vintage just needs a little bit of love.
In the wake of the 2008 recession, buy, sell, and trade chains like Buffalo Exchange, Crossroads, and Wasteland have enjoyed significant boosts in revenue, while several retail giants have taken a hit.
The response we always get is, oh my gosh, wow, I had no idea you were such a small business. And we find that people are more excited to support us. And I think that that makes people more willing to wait the time it takes to get the order, because they know that we're doing everything ourselves and from our garage and with love.
So what advantage do small businesses like Tunnel Vision have over major corporations? A personal touch that many LA shoppers do not take for granted. For Annenberg Media, I'm Madeline White.
Thanks for watching The Current. Let us know what you think about the show on Facebook or Twitter.
Next week, we'll be looking at women's rights and the feminist movement. You can give us your opinion on social media with the hashtag TheCurrentSC.